I travel frequently for work. One city after another, hotel after hotel. Eventually, they all blend into one: beige walls, uncomfortable beds, humming vending machines. I even stopped bothering to remember their names. There was simply no point. But for some reason, I remember this one very clearly. It was late October. I'd been driving for almost 10 hours straight through pouring rain. I could feel exhaustion seeping deep into my bones. So when I saw the flickering neon sign of the Marlin View and looming out of the darkness, I pulled in without hesitation. 3 stories high, dimly lit windows, and an old sign that occasionally flickered as if struggling to stay alive. An elderly woman sat behind the reception desk. She looked calm, almost too calm. Her tired eyes barely glanced up as I approached. "We only have one room left," she said softly without raising her eyes from her desk. "Room 313. Will that be okay?" "As long as it's clean and quiet," I replied, handing over my ID. At that, she looked up briefly, a strange, almost hesitant look crossing her face, as though she wanted to say something. Instead, she remained silent, handed me the key card, and quickly turned her attention back to her book. As I climbed to the 3rd floor, I noticed the hallway grew darker with every step. The overhead lights buzzed softly, and the carpet under my feet gradually shifted from green to a dull, brownish color. I stopped in front of room 313 and opened the door. Immediately, I was struck by a scent: sweet, old perfume, cloying but pleasant, as though trying to mask something beneath. The smell seemed ingrained into the walls, as if it had been there for years. The room itself looked perfectly ordinary. A simple bed, a writing desk, heavy curtains drawn tightly shut over the window, and a bathroom with a single flickering light. I tossed my bag onto the floor, fell onto the bed without bothering to undress, and almost instantly passed out. I woke up suddenly. The clock read exactly 3:13 a.m. I lay motionless, tried to figure out what had awakened me. The room was perfectly still, but I had an unsettling sense that I wasn't alone. My heart was beating faster, like I'd been running. I sat up slowly, looking around the room. It was darker than when I fell asleep, even though I clearly remembered leaving the bathroom light on. Now it was off. I couldn't recall getting up to switch it off. Then I heard a quiet sound, a faint shuffling, as though someone was softly walking barefoot across the carpet. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept it around the room. Nothing. I got up carefully, opened the door, and glanced into the hallway. It was empty and silent. Returning to the room, I was just about to lie down again when suddenly I heard a soft, almost inaudible woman's whisper right behind me. "You're not him." I spun around, my heart nearly stopping, but the room was empty. Yet the perfume scent had grown so strong it was suffocating. I switched on every available light and sat on the bed, staring at nothing, until morning finally arrived. I felt completely drained the next morning as I made my way down to the lobby. The same woman sat behind the desk, as if she hadn't moved all night. Her expression was as blank as ever. "Excuse me," I asked cautiously. "Is there something wrong with room 313? She paused, looking down for a moment before responding quietly. "Most people don't stay in 313 more than one night." "Why not?" I pressed. She finally lifted her weary eyes toward mine. "Some rooms have unfortunate histories." "What do you mean?" I asked nervously. She glanced away and spoke even more softly. "Just ignore it. Sometimes old buildings remember things people would rather forget. Her tone suggested the conversation was over. Shaken, I stepped outside for fresh air. Reaching into my pocket for my car keys, I found something unexpected. A folded piece of paper with a note written unmistakably in my own handwriting. I promised I'd come back. Below it, a date was written, October 27th, 1984. But I was born in 1989. My head spun with confusion. I stared at the yellowed paper, at my own handwriting, and felt my reality slipping. Stuffing the note back into my pocket, I quickly decided that I needed to leave. Immediately, I packed quickly and returned to the lobby to check out, but the desk was empty. I rang the bell several times. No one came. Finally, I placed the keycard on the desk and moved toward the exit. When I stepped outside, I stopped dead in my tracks. The parking lot and road had vanished. Instead, a dense forest stretched endlessly in all directions. I blinked in disbelief, and suddenly the familiar parking lot reappeared, my car sitting exactly where I'd left it. Turning back toward the hotel, I froze again. The building had changed entirely. It was now an old, decaying structure with peeling paint and a faded sign reading, Eloise's boarding house. "What's happening?" I whispered, panic rising in my chest. I blinked again, and the vision vanished. The modern hotel was back, as though nothing had changed. In a panic, I ran to my car, jumped in, and sped down the road, watching in the rearview mirror as the hotel disappeared into the distance. But suddenly, the hotel appeared directly in front of me again. I slammed on the brakes, heart racing. There it was, the Marlin View Inn, exactly as I just left it. My dashboard clock flashed 3:13. Checking my phone, it showed the same impossible time, even though daylight surrounded me. It dawned on me then, I wouldn't be leaving this place so easily. I don't remember how I ended up back in room 313. Suddenly, I was standing by the window, staring out into the darkness. It was night again. I glanced at the clock, 3:13 a.m. Stepping back from the window, I felt confusion and panic rising. How had I returned here? I struggled to recall the last few hours, but all I could remember was that endless road bringing me back to this cursed hotel. Looking around, I noticed the closet door slightly ajar. I was sure I hadn't opened it before. Slowly, I approached and peered inside. An old mirror hung on the inside of the door, reflecting my own face back at me. But the reflection didn't look quite right. I moved closer, examining it carefully. Suddenly, the reflection smiled. I hadn't smiled. "Who are you?" I whispered, fear gripping my chest. My reflection stayed silent, then slowly raised a finger to its lips, signaling me to stay quiet, before dissolving into darkness. I slammed the closet shut and stumbled backward onto the bed, gasping for air. The scent of perfume became suffocating, and the room felt as if it was shrinking. The lights flickered, then plunged into darkness. In that thick silence, a familiar woman's voice whispered softly, "You're not him, but you'll do." The next morning felt even stranger. I woke up feeling as if I hadn't slept at all. My head throbbed painfully. On the desk, a notebook lay open, filled with handwriting that I immediately recognized as my own. But I knew for certain I hadn't written it. Today marks 1 year since I left her, but she still waits for me. This room won't let me go. Eloise won't let me go. I'm no longer sure who I am. Maybe this is all just a dream. Maybe I'll never truly wake again. At the bottom of the page was that same impossible date, October 27th, 1984. A wave of nausea and dizziness overcame me again. Who was this person writing in my handwriting? What was happening to me? Beneath the notebook was an old photograph, yellowed with age. It showed a young woman in a wedding dress. On the back it read, "Forever yours, Eloise. October 1984. Her eyes stared straight through me. Now I understood clearly. Something here was twisting reality itself. I needed answers. I rushed downstairs to the lobby. The elderly woman was there, as though she'd never left. "Who is Eloise?" I demanded sharply. She startled slightly, then slowly lifted her eyes to meet mine. "This used to be her hotel," she whispered hesitantly, "before the tragedy." "What tragedy?" She glanced around nervously, then lowered her voice further. "Eloise lived here. She was about to be married, but her fiancé vanished the day before their wedding. Everyone said he just ran off. Eloise couldn't bear it. She hung herself in the room that became 313. And now what?" I asked desperately. "Now she waits," she answered softly. "Waits for anyone who enters her room. She can't leave until someone takes his place." I felt my breath catch. I bolted back upstairs, desperate to leave immediately. But as soon as I burst into room 313, the door slammed shut behind me, locking itself tightly. I fought desperately with the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The room filled once more with the smell of perfume, and a cold whisper filled the air. "Stay. It's your turn to wait." I couldn't open the door. It felt like someone was holding it closed from the other side with impossible strength. The room grew colder by the second. Lights flickered again, then went out completely, leaving me trapped in suffocating darkness. I stood frozen, hearing only the frantic sound of my own breathing. Even the sound of the rain outside suddenly vanished, as if the outside world no longer existed. The silence pressed down on me until I heard a familiar soft shuffling, bare feet slowly moving across the carpet. "Who's there?" I asked into the darkness, struggling to keep my voice steady. The reply was quiet laughter that sent chills down my spine. It came from everywhere at once, soft, gentle, but utterly clear. Then I saw her. Eloise stood by the window, wearing a faded wedding dress, a small bouquet of wilted flowers clutched in her hands. Her face was barely visible in the shadows, but her eyes burned with sadness and longing. "I've waited for you so long," she said softly. "Why didn't you come?" I tried to speak, but no words came. My heart felt like it might explode. "I'm not him," I finally forced out. "This is a mistake." She took a step closer, and an icy chill washed over me. "It doesn't matter anymore," she whispered gently. "You're here now. That's enough." The room filled with a dim, unnatural light. Writing began to appear on the walls. Dozens of notes written in different handwriting, each eerily similar to the ones I had found. I promised I would return. She won't let me go. Now I'll wait forever. All these people, they'd been here before. The room hadn't let them leave, and now it was my turn. I glanced at the closet mirror and saw my own reflection staring back at me with a sad smile. It shook its head slowly as if to say, "It's too late." Eloise moved even closer, gently taking my hand in hers. Her touch was ice cold. "Now you'll stay with me forever," she said, her voice strangely comforting. I closed my eyes, understanding this was the end. But suddenly I woke up. I was back in bed, heart racing, ears ringing. Outside, the rain fell steadily again. Everything seemed normal, almost peaceful. The clock beside me read exactly 3:13. I got up slowly, approaching the mirror. My reflection looked normal. No strange notes, no shadows, no coldness. I laughed with relief. Just a nightmare. A horrible, vivid nightmare. But when I opened the door to the hallway, I froze. It had changed. The carpet was bright green again, and the lights shone cheerfully. In the distance, I heard the lobby door open,